All right, everyone, we are back for another episode of the Lost and Found podcast. I am your host, Amanda Powers, and I'm so excited because today we are in studio back at Lagos Creative here in Nashville, Tennessee with my good friend, George. George, say hi to everybody, all the wanderers.
Hello, wanderers, and thank you, Amanda, for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, so today we're going to chat with George all about his life and his experiences and his lost and found journey and anything and everything in between. So I'm so excited to have you here. And I'm so honored. I've had guests be appreciative of me sending them notes, but I've never had a guest send notes back or thoughts written down back. And so before we got started today, George sent me his answers to some of the questions I wanted to ask. And I just thought that was so endearing. And mostly it filled my heart with joy because it meant that you not only respected what I'm trying to do, but it meant you wanted to answer the question honestly and seriously. And it just brought me so much joy. It was like, okay, if George believes in me and that's the effort he's willing to put in, then I should feel just as that much belief in myself. So I'm so glad to have you here because it makes me feel like I'm going in the right direction.
Well, of course, yes. And I've been really excited to be on the show and, of course, taking it seriously because I think you're doing great work and I'm really proud of you.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Well, George, tell everybody about yourself a little bit. Like you're a true Southern gentleman through and through, but tell everybody a little bit about your life and how did you get up here to Nashville? What brought you here originally?
Yes. So, like you said, true Southern gentleman. I was born and raised in North Alabama, a small town outside of Huntsville called Decatur.
Okay.
And growing up, I always knew I wanted to be in a bigger city. As a matter of fact, I told my high school English teacher that I was going to move to Nashville and be the house rep for the Brentwood district.
Nice.
That was my goal when I was in high school. I have changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
But I definitely still have a love for Nashville. And kind of what actually brought me here was when I graduated from Alabama, I was applying for jobs like everyone does when they graduate.
Yeah.
And I'd been on plenty of interviews, honestly, just mid-tier corporate interviews, nothing exciting, until I interviewed with Vanderbilt. And when I interviewed with Kathy and Twee, my manager and director from Vandy, I came downstairs from that interview and I told my grandparents, I'm moving to Nashville, I'm working for these people.
Yeah.
They were amazing. They finished each other's sentences. The vibe was it was what I knew I needed in my life. So I moved up here in July of 2018.
Okay, yeah.
And I've loved it since day one. I worked for Vandy for 3 years, got to meet some amazing people across the different research groups that we had. Amazing connections that I still have to this day, just great friends. And then was it 2020, I guess, is when I moved to the neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. We originally met at the dog park. So our dogs are friends. I'm so excited. Yeah. We'll talk about that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been in the neighborhood for a little over 4 years now. And I just love everyone that I meet. It's just such a great environment. The people are so friendly, inviting.
Yeah.
You get that Southern culture of everyone's welcoming and, wants to do things together, but a little bit more of a bigger city vibe of maybe more open than it was in a smaller town.
Right. Yeah. Did you ever get much of a culture shock? Like, I'll be honest, like coming from Nashville to go to school in Mississippi was still a little bit of a culture shock for me for undergrad. And then I had friends from Alabama and then from Texas and then Arkansas and Massachusetts and Pennsylvania. And like, and then I worked all over the place and went to different cities for a long time for the last 10, 12 years. So I feel like despite even it's not that far away, Decatur from Nashville, but it probably felt like a completely different world.
Yes, 100%, there was a little bit of culture shock there. I think one of my friends from Vandy, actually, we're still friends today. And I asked him one time, I was like, what was the hardest thing for you he's from Tuscaloosa. Yeah. And I was like, what was the hardest thing for you moving up here? And he looked at me and it was the most stone cold response I could have possibly asked for. And he goes, I get really tired of paying $20 for half a sandwich and a bag of chips. And it cracked me up because it was the most accurate thing in the world.
Oh, sure.
But yes, there are differences, but I love them. Yeah, getting used to kind of the hustle and bustle, but also not quite the same as it would be in like New York or LA. So it got me out of my comfort zone without completely ripping me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, a good toe in the water kind of thing. You can set your own desire there. Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more about like you growing up, because when I first met you at the dog park, everybody told me, well, George he doesn't flip houses, he flips cars. And I was like so confused about that. I'm like, oh, so he's a car dealer. Like, great, we can go to his lot. And they're like, no, it's not exactly like that. He gets his own car and like invests it, but then he sells it for way more than what he bought it for. And like, he's always making a profit. And I was like, where is George? Which house is George's? Because you always had a different car outside. So I never, like, it took me forever to figure out where you lived. Because I was like, wow, there's a new person in there all the time. So I'd love it if you could dive in a little bit, because you didn't always work at Vanderbilt, or you weren't always in a corporate position before.
Correct.
You were, the guest that came in right before you talks all about entrepreneurship and business starting, you know, as being a self-starter. So I'm curious if you could dive in a little bit about your life or what raised you into wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Definitely. So when I was growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather was actually a GM dealer down in Alabama. So growing up, I was a little bit of the weird kid. After school, my absolute favorite thing in the world to do was for me and Grandy to go down to the Chevrolet place and look in the bullpen where they put their trade-ins and buy whatever was dirty. Anything clean, they would keep and put it on their lot and they would retail it. But anything dirty we could buy, we could clean it up, pull a dent out, you know, get stains out of the carpet, things like that.
Sure.
And that's what I would do after school, is me and my grandfather would hang out and clean up cars that we bought from the Chevrolet place and then take them to the auction. It's on Tuesdays. We would take them to the auction and sell them there. And I always tell people that the car business is like the biggest drug in the world. Because once you started, you can't stop. It's so exciting, especially so right now, my project, I bought my best friend from high school's 99 two-door Tahoe. I loved this car when he bought it. Everybody in Decatur wanted this car. Nick lived down the street and his dad bought it for him when he turned 16. So from that day forward, I told Nick, I was like, I want that car. I really want that car.
Right.
And a few years ago, he found out his wife was pregnant, which they were very excited about, still excited. They have a cute little baby. But I had the opportunity to buy it then. So I did. It was in a field. It had not run in 7 years.
Oh my gosh.
I had a 2500 truck and I had to pull it out of the field. But I've been so excited from day one. And I took it to a mechanic who had some health problems, and he's kind of kicked the can, and I've kind of let him kick the can because I've kind of been avoiding it.
Right.
But in the past couple of weeks, I've decided, okay, it's time to do this. You know, so I got in touch with him. I'm actually switching mechanics, but I'm having to do a new motor, new transmission, a couple of other things, but probably going to have more money in it than it's worth. But I've wanted this car for so long that I had
the
to
nostalgia.
Yes. And there's nothing more exciting than, like, I've got the pictures of when I pulled it out of the field. And there's nothing more exciting than having that to compare with when I get done with it.
Yeah, I know. In your house, when I visited before, you've got a wall of your before and afters of your cars or dream cars that you've had or you've sold or you've flipped. Yeah, so that's a new photo that can go back up on the wall.
Exactly. Okay, so with the photos, I actually had to calm down with putting pictures on my wall. Because I realized, for one, so I bought my grandfather's dealer's license from him in 2017. Since then, I've had 54, 55 cars, so since college. And I started to realize that once I had my picture, I was less interested in the car. That was really what I wanted, was I did it, it was fun, move on. So I've kind of cooled out with posting or putting my pictures of my cars on my wall. I'm probably about to start back, though.
No, that's an interesting psychology of it, though. You're chasing a specific high, but you thought it would be the physical car, but it turned out you're realizing actually it was just the collector's item visualization, because you can't keep 54 cars in our neighborhood. Like, there's nowhere for you to put them.
Exactly.
So the only way to do that is through your photos. So that makes sense.
Yes, and I remember the story behind every one of them.
Yes.
Like, I love when I show people the pictures. I'm like, oh, I remember, I don't know, for example, I had a green Kia Soul one time that I remember people gave me so much crap because it was bright green.
Well, yeah, but that was the one the hamsters had in the commercial.
Exactly.
Was the green one.
Yes. I remember buying it. I remember who I bought it from, who I sold it to. I lost $10 on that car. I remember for every one of them. I remember the whole story. And I don't know, some people, don't get me wrong, I love to travel and things like that too, but for some people, they like to golf or travel or whatever. And for me, the cars are really a lot of my memories or experiences that I've had, and things that I've learned. So, yeah.
What would you say was probably, through that process of flipping the cars and turning them from dirt to sellable with your grandfather, what was probably the most impactful lesson you gained from that experience with him?
Okay, so one of the most terrifying things in the world is when you're at the auctioneer is talking 90 to nothing. Right. Which, as you can imagine, in Alabama is not common.
I've actually been to one car auction in Maryland, and it was crazy, like how fast it went.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then you've got the ring men so my grandfather used to do this thing where, like, if they were backing up where they were, like say they started the car at 20 grand, didn't get a bid, and backed up, he would hold his fist out because he knew most of the ring men, and they knew that, okay, if he put his fist out, don't back it up any lower, he'll bid there, but he's not going to bid there because he wants to see if anybody else is going to. All these kind of crazy tricks like that. Yeah. Everybody's got their little thing. I'm always terrified that, like, if I make eye contact with a ring man, they might think that's a bid. So
oh my goodness.
It's terrifying. So it really ripped a lot of my confidence out from under me, to be honest, because you're scared. I'm bad, especially when I was younger. I loved to go to the auction block when it was something like, I don't know, an Aston Martin or something like that there. I just wanted to see it go through. I wasn't buying that.
Yeah.
But I'd be looking at the ground because I didn't want anybody to think that I was bidding, and I wouldn't make eye contact. I'd awkwardly stand there. But as I've gotten older, I've realized you've got to be confident. You know, obviously I don't need to confidently bid on something like that, but you've got to be confident and just be comfortable with yourself. Don't feel so tense, which is applied to a lot of different areas of life for me. So yeah, I guess being thrown to the wolves as a kid at like 14, walking in on the auction block, that
taught you a lot.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure not only about finances and like how to source and find and resell the car, but like human interaction too, like the social connection that happens, the politics that happens at that. If it's a weekly or a daily kind of place, like who's there and who's buying what, and you kind of learn what people are looking for. You learn how to spot people's tells. So as a salesman yourself now, you've probably learned, pick out kind of people's weaknesses. And I know that sounds like a negative, but like what am I motivated by? How do I find that out about somebody else? And that's how I sell something to them based on what are they motivated by the most.
Exactly. Yes. So like one of the biggest things is I've learned that you make your money on the buying side, not on the selling side. My grandfather used to always tell me that, and I didn't really know what he meant.
Sure.
But I don't know if you'll remember, but I've had a couple of Tahoes that I always order the exact same thing. It's, I think it's called Sterling Gray Metallic, tan leather, panorama sunroof, Z71 with the premium package, because I know that's what everyone wants. And I know I can get a good deal on it new because I've got a friend who's a Chevrolet dealer.
Yeah.
And it's something that I can drive for 6 months and sell it.
Yes.
But it's I know these are the things people want in a car, and kind of pulling all that together as you do your sourcing.
Yeah. I'm curious, how has this, I know it's your side hustle kind of, like it's not your full-time day job right now, but over the last few years, so much has changed, especially after COVID. The logistical supply chain has affected everything, which cars can get made, which ones are waiting on like computers and upgrades, and things are coming out. And now, people used to think, oh, if I buy the used car is cheaper because it's got more miles on it. And now I'm having friends telling me that they have to replace their cars, and getting a used car costs almost as much as a brand new one coming off the lot, but nobody can get the brand new ones to stay on the lots. So they're running into all kinds of issues. So I'm curious, what have you seen, or what has changed from your perspective in this particular industry, and how are you responding to that now? Because I know you're not going to give up cars. So how are you pivoting and adjusting to all these changes?
Okay, so it's actually really interesting you bring that up, because originally my business model was going to be that I would help friends and family find cars. And then just as I found things that I knew I could make money on, buy those and flip them on the side. But then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I had so many people reaching out saying, hey, I'm really trying to find, this, that, or the other. And I would look at the numbers, and especially if I know someone, like if it were you reaching out, I would look at the numbers and I'd say, hey, when you figure it, a new one might cost $3,000 to $5,000 more, but you'll get a much better interest rate on a new car than you would a used car. You've got the brand new warranty. You can get exactly what you want. You might have to, at the time especially, you might have to go 500 miles to find the one you want.
Right.
But you would be better off.
Sure.
Just because, like when you figure, 3 to 5% difference on the interest rate, you're not saving that much when you're buying a used car versus a new car based on where the market was. Okay. Now, it has come down a good bit. I know, like, for example, I saw a commercial, or I saw something on Instagram the other day talking about there's like, I want to say 5,000 unsold Corvettes from 2024. Okay. So they've got this mid-engine Corvette that it came out in 2020. And that was probably one of my biggest success stories, in my opinion. Okay. Because I've never been more confident. I ordered one the first day I could. I walked out of work because I'd go on walks all the time, which you
Yes,
know.
I've seen it. Yeah. No, I waved from my desk at home, be like, hey, that's George taking his afternoon walk.
Exactly. And so I walked out of work and I called the Chevrolet dealer and I was like, hey, they're making this car and I want it. And he was like, we'll see if they actually make it. And I was like, Jeff, I know they're going to make it. I want this car. And everyone I told was kind of like, George, Corvettes lose money. That's just a known thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this one's going to make money. So when it came out, I had the third one in the Southeast, if I remember right.
Oh, wow.
And I wound up selling it to a guy in Puerto Rico. And for about a week, honestly, that's pretty liberal, for about 3 days, I held the world record for a 2022 LT Corvette, which got blown out of the water in the coming weeks as they started to take off. But I was so proud. And then, like I said, now dealers can't get rid of them. So it's, like you said, it's an ever-changing market.
Right.
And that's kind of one of the hard parts for me of whether or not to go full-time with cars or keep it as a side hustle. With a side hustle, every time I kind of go into something new or a new vehicle that I haven't really done that kind of class before, something like that Corvette,
Right.
I have to do a lot of research, figure out, where am I, say, okay, for example, I've been looking at an 85 GMC Jimmy, which is like a K5 Blazer, but the GMC version. Do you remember the 96 Bronco that I had?
Yes, everyone loved that one. That one was a really cool car.
So this is the GMC version.
Okay.
And I loved that car. I'm a big GM person, but I should have never sold that Ford. I loved it. But I'll do research on, okay, which websites essentially are cars selling for more on, less on, what things are collectors looking for, what things are typical problems, that kind of thing. And for me, where I am right now, which changes based on the day, I've decided I want to keep cars kind of on the side because it's a good outlet for me. Not that I'm a control freak, but when things are just not going the way you want and there's nothing you can control, for me, I like to have something that I can go back to and I know exactly how it works and I can control it. So for me, that's the car business, because not to be arrogant by any means, but I'm fairly good at it.
No, be confident. Yeah. You worked hard on that. You've spent over half your life in that space.
Yes. And it's a great outlet for me. For example, I recently had a job that I didn't particularly love. And when I'd be going through a tough time with it, I'd go buy a car. And I wouldn't necessarily think through what I was doing before I bought it, because I wouldn't make time to do it on the front end. But once I had the car, I would take the time to figure out, okay, where's the best place to sell it? What kinds of things do I need to do to it to make sure somebody's going to want it? All of that marketing and sales side of it. And it gives me a good outlet. I know a lot of people on the block will mess with me because, like, Hughes will ask me, George, do you wash your car 4 or 5 times a week? I'm like, well, sometimes 6. It depends on the weather.
Yeah, it depends on what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, right now it's an outlet. Maybe one day it'll be a full-time outlet. I'm a little scared that if I do take it full-time, it will become work instead of...
Right. Yeah, you may not love it as much.
Yes.
And then if it is your sole source of... Theoretically, if that became your sole source of income, then there's so much more pressure on yourself to get the guessing exactly right, like being as accurate and precise with every single purchase. And that's a lot of pressure, because I'm sure you've bought some cars and you couldn't flip it as easily as you thought you were going to, or I know you joked about missing one of them where you only lost $10, but I'm sure there's been other times where you bought one and you're like, I did not do that right, or whatever.
Yes, I have made a few hasty decisions that did not work out the best for me, but you learn. I paid for a lesson.
Yes. You pay for a lesson. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm curious, you became an entrepreneur in that sense pretty early on in your life. So I'm interested, how did that entrepreneurial mindset, how did that impact your self-confidence and your personal development?
Definitely. So from a self-confidence standpoint, it's been good for me because, I'm trying to think the best way to word it. There have been ups and downs to it. So for example, like financially, I don't worry about things because I know worst come to worst, I can always sell cars.
Yeah.
That's something I know I can do. I know I can make enough money doing it. So I've always got my backup plan. So like I got laid off in January and I was honestly fairly happy.
You got out of a toxic environment. Like you
you
knew deep in your heart, because I think when I even first met you, you were like, this is not the job for me. And that was, over 2 years ago now at this point. So like you made it come to fruition, I guess. Like, not that you got yourself fired, but just that that came out wrong.
No, you're
but
good.
like, you were like, oh yeah, I was right the whole time. This was the decision that would make more sense.
Yeah. And it's been freeing in that, like, whenever I don't know if I ever have something coming up that I wasn't expecting, like, so for example, my washer broke last year, things like that. I'm like, oh, I'll just flip a car. No big deal. Yeah. Like, I don't even really think it through. I've also been in a lot of places, like a lot of situations where you've got to be able to negotiate essentially with a straight face. That's been helpful, especially like interviewing with jobs, things like that. I don't necessarily always treat it as like a negotiation like you would on a car, but I'm confident. I know what my tells are because I've seen examples of when I've failed in negotiations. So I know not to show that side in a way whenever I'm working, on a job interview or things like that. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's great that you were able to recognize applicable skill sets, right? That can go in lots of different directions. That's really good. That's important. So tell us a little bit more about your journey coming up to Nashville. You're living on your own. I'm assuming you don't have family here that I'm aware of, right? Like, so you're blazing your own trail. Did your family expect you to stay in Decatur, or did you kind of always want to build your own path in life here?
Yes. So one of the, I guess, interesting things for me, honestly, kind of a hard thing for me, is I'm not far from two separate people when I'm in Alabama versus when I'm in Nashville. In Nashville, I'm much more of me.
Yeah.
I really get to enjoy what I like to do. I don't worry about what anybody thinks. To be honest, one of my favorite things in the world is going to Broadway because I absolutely know without a doubt I will never see any of those people ever again.
Well, yeah, it's such a transient city now, and most of them are drunk, so they can't even see you. They can't see this far apart. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's been really great for me because I've gotten to really become who I am instead of who I'm supposed to be. It's like being in a small town, I was always my grandparents' grandson, my brother's brother. They're always essentially like kind of predefined paths or expectations set. One of them specifically being I'm much more comfortable being gay in Nashville than I ever am in Alabama.
Right.
Even though I'm out, proud, all of that. One of the kind of struggles of growing up being, I hate to say this because I don't think it's the best way to word it, but I don't know a better way to word it. Being what I call semi-passable, you get to hear the things people would say about a group without them knowing they're saying it to someone who's part of that group.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think, the phrase passing.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little restricting or a little bit, makes me a little bit uncomfortable, honestly, sometimes when I'm in Alabama.
Sure.
Just because I know what people said growing up, and it's not just, crappy kids making comments. I remember comments my family made, family, friends, like adults, all that. And I feel like in Nashville, I get to really be who I am because I don't worry about it. Because like in a small town, you don't have a whole lot of options. There's not that many people in Decatur. You kind of have to get along with them. And in Nashville, there's enough people that you can find your actual group and find your actual fit. I know I've got plenty of friends who have been different for unique reasons that have moved out of a small town, specifically most of them Decatur, moved to places like New Orleans, Nashville, New York, Atlanta, wherever.
Right, yeah.
And they find their actual group. And it's because when you get out of that small town, for some people, you really get to become who you actually are. So that's been really big for me, is being who I am, being proud of it, and really just growing into me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and everybody deserves the opportunity to find those things, right? Or at least have the ability to figure it out. I don't think it's definitely not a show where we're trashing small towns by any means. Nashville used to be one, and it is not, because I remember growing up here, and that was what they were very proud of, was like big city access with small town feel, and now it's just a conglomerate. But I think it's important, exactly kind of like what you said, the small town shaped you, but it is still its own little bubble in its own way. So sometimes you do have to be one type of George in one city and one type of George in the other. But I'm glad that you've figured out that being who you are in Nashville doesn't mean that you stopped being that person while you're in Decatur. Like you have to shift or pivot a bit about how you interact with people, but you don't have to stop being George. Like you don't have to give up or suppress anything in particular. You just interact differently. And now that you're an adult, you get to choose who you can interact with. Because I'm sure as a kid, you have to be nice to your parents' friends, or you have to go to this party and behave well, or do whatever the authority figures are telling you. But you're grown up now. You can visit when you want, or stay as long as you want, or leave sooner if you want to. So like you're not forced into a position anymore like you may have been when you were younger.
Definitely. And that was one thing that being able to get out of Decatur has been helpful. Just I think that's what best way to word it. Being able to get out of Decatur when I want to, but be there when I want to, because there are still great things about Decatur.
Of course, yeah.
My family's still there. I love to go see them, but also I don't feel quite as comfortable there. Yeah. So I get to go there until I reach that limit, and then come back to my home in Nashville. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what's been your favorite thing about building your own home in Nashville. You're living on your own. You bought the lovely townhome where our neighborhood where we all live. You have your own sweet dog, Adele. So like what have you been building and creating, and tell us a little bit about that. And I guess I also want to share the origin story of Adele too. Like, how did you get her and name her? And she's just the sweetest thing in the world. And I love seeing her get so excited about all the babies in the neighborhood too.
She is obsessed with babies. I swear, if we ever see a stroller, she goes for it. She's like, "Oh, I want to see what's in there."
Yeah,
it's a baby.
It's a baby.
I'm like, "Yeah, it is a baby."
It's always a baby.
It started because Ryder they would always keep tennis balls in the bottom of
Palmer's.
Yeah. And so now Adele thinks, there's going to be a baby and a tennis ball. But yes, so okay, I'll start with my origin story for Adele.
Yeah.
So growing up, I always wanted a golden retriever. I just absolutely love them. They're so cuddly and fun.
Yeah.
And I had gone to look at golden retrievers probably 10 times. And finally, I don't know why, but I found a breeder. She was in, where was it? Phil Campbell, Alabama.
Okay.
And I went out there. And when I got there, when she answered the door, I handed her the money and I was like, "I want to go ahead and give you this." And she said, "Well, you haven't seen them yet. You want to make sure that..." I was like, No. I'm not leaving without a dog today.
I'm getting one, yeah.
Yes. And I knew I wanted a girl. There were only 2 girls left. And the name Adele was on my list, because I had a list of, say, like 10 names that I was thinking about.
Sure.
I was a big Adele fan. Still am a big Adele fan. But when she brought the 2, female golden retrievers in there, I knew Adele was the one from the start, because she was so much more cuddly and fun and playful, and it was just a match. I could tell we loved each other from the start. The other dog, I don't think was really that into me.
You're like, no hard feelings. Yeah. Definitely not bitter. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, you got a great home, dude.
Yeah.
But she was, she's not white, but she's a lighter colored golden retriever.
Yeah.
And she was more heavy set than the other one.
Yeah.
And at the time, Adele was also a little bit more heavy set. I don't remember the other names on my list. I knew the second I saw Adele that she was Adele.
It's Adele. Yeah.
And so I got her that day, and we were pulling out of the driveway. It was this long driveway out in the country. And as soon as we turn, we're in the sticks. As soon as we turn, she pukes on me. And I just started laughing, and I was like, crap, we've got to clean this up. Yeah. Didn't have anything in the car to clean it up with. And we were also like 20 minutes from the closest anything. So I sat there with puke on me for like 20 minutes. It was cute. It was fun. It was a great bonding experience. And we've honestly just been best friends ever since. Like, one of my favorite things in the world is in the morning, I'll come downstairs, and she has learned apparently that I'm a little ADHD, maybe, because I come downstairs every morning, I take my medicine, and then is when my little, not spiral, but my disorganization starts. I'll tell Adele, "Come on, Adele, let's go for a walk." And she sits on the ledge of like the landing for going up the stairs, and she'll look at me and she won't budge. And I'm like, "What?" And I remember, I didn't put my watch on. And I'll be like, "Okay, Adele, come on." And then she'll just look at me, and I'm like, "Forgot my sunglasses." And then she'll look at me, and I'm like, "Adele, okay, I've got it this time. Come on."
I promise. Yeah, I'm ready.
And she'll start working down the stairs like, "All right, you promise? Like, it's early and I don't want to move, And we'll get over towards the door, and I'm like, "Oh crap, we need more poop bags to put in the leash." And she just looks at me, and you can see it in her face that she is like, "I was waiting for you."
Why did you wake me up? Yeah. If we're not going.
And then we'll get back to the house. We usually do like about 2.5 to 3 miles every morning. I know one of the questions is about like, how do you get yourself out of a funk, or how do you like kind of reset? That walk every morning is a game changer for me.
Yeah.
Because it's long enough that anything that I'm excited about, irked about, anything that I have any kind of emotion about, I think about it on my walk. And me and Adele will talk about it. And by the time I get back home, I've kind of got it figured out. Because if I just sit there and think about it, I just spiral. But when I'm on my walk, I'll think through whatever it is. I'll plan my day. It's about a 45-minute period of figuring out what I'm going to do. So she's a big part of that. She also is a little judgmental. She does not like when I snack because I don't always give her some of my snacks.
Right. She wants it. Yeah.
She definitely does.
Dirk always wants it. Yeah.
Right?
The paw, like just the slam of the paw. Like he's being gentle, but like he's so heavy, so it's like very forceful.
Yes. And it's a little sassy, right?
Like, give me that. I'm like, you don't need it. It's not for you.
Yeah, it's like these goldfish are for me.
Yeah. Excuse you.
But every now and then I will say she does get some goldfish because everyone needs goldfish.
Yeah, no, I love that she's incorporated into your ritual and stuff. I feel like Dirk's really is too. Even on the days where I'm annoyed and I don't want to get up, especially in the winter to walk him, but I know that he needs it and I need it too because it's how I wake myself up in the morning. I get up, brush my teeth, I put on the dog walking outfit because I don't ever look cute, as you can attest at the park. Yeah. And then I take him out and do something similar where get him to walk as long as he wants to, and then bring him back in. But yeah, it's part of it and it helps. The emotional regulation, kind of like what you talked about, when I'm alone and I'm not talking to anybody, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm just walking him. I might talk to him, but a lot of the podcast themes come to me, or the topics come to me when I've been walking him. And I think it's the moment in the morning when my brain is not, I won't say turned off, but it's the most receptive. It's the most open to opportunity or thought processes or something like that. Because that's where I feel like the intuitive voice comes in and tells me, okay, today you really should talk about this. And I'll be like, I don't know why, but sure. Like, let me write that down in my notes app while I'm walking to him. And then I'll go back and like record it. And that usually ends up being one of the episodes where people reach out the most right afterwards or something. So it's been interesting that I've included him into this process. My own personal development is getting a dog, and I thought it would just be fun, but it's weird. They get integrated into your ritual.
They do, because they become so much part of you. Like, I know there are certain times that I'll notice me and Adele look similar. I know you and Dirks have times that y'all look similar.
Wearing all black, yeah.
And it's a good way to kind of start your day with a little version of you. That makes sense. That's not a kid.
That can't talk back. Yes. I can only imagine the things that he would tell on me if that was the case. Oh, God.
Oh, same. Adele.
The secrets he could reveal.
Yes. They know everything.
Oh, goodness. Well, I know you've been a lovely avid listener of the show, so you are aware, but for any new listeners that this may be your first time listening to the show or episode and learning about me and my purpose here, a major theme of this is acknowledging our, defining moments in our lives and moments where you felt kind of stuck or lost and you've realized, I need to pivot or I have to get out of this and I don't really know where to go or what to do. So I'm curious if you could share an example of maybe a transformative moment that was in your life and how did you approach that problem when you were feeling stuck?
Yes. So a few years ago, I had recently started a new job and we had an amazing CFO at the company. She was just honestly the salt of the earth. I loved her. And I've always been a big fan of strong female leaders because I know there's a lot that you have to overcome, especially in corporate America as a woman. That sounds terrible. So I just was a huge fan of her. And I had a coworker, or actually a manager, who, when speaking about her one day, made the comment to me that he didn't understand why they were making such a DE&I push because women did nothing but make the workplace more difficult.
Yep.
And that's kind of the moment I realized that there were two versions of me, the Nashville me and the Decatur me, because typically I know to play the part and just kind of be like, oh yeah, haha, go along with it. But as soon as he said it, the first thing that popped in my mind was, if he would say that about a woman who is our CFO, what would he say about me if he knew I was gay? And I knew immediately I didn't feel like I was in a safe place. So I felt stuck. I felt lost. I felt like I didn't know exactly how to process it. But Fortunately, I had a friend who was on the board for the LGBTQ group at work, and he asked if I'd be interested in joining. And I was actually like, yeah, I actually really would, because I knew it was a safe place. And I didn't really know to what extent I would get involved, but I knew that would be a safe place. And I didn't feel safe in my role or with my team. So I joined the group. And at first I was kind of like a bystander, showed up at events that they needed someone at.
Right.
You know, didn't really do much. But eventually I wound up joining the board, getting more involved, and eventually became the treasurer, and really made some amazing connections that helped me kind of realize that I was growing, or that it helped me see the world in a different way, if that makes sense.
No, that's incredible.
They made me comfortable, which is really what I needed. But I'm thankful for the uncomfortable moment, because it showed me what my values are. I don't really want to be around people who are going to make comments like that about women in the workplace. I don't want to be around people that are going to make comments about any minority like that in any situation, whether it's work, home, or wherever else. It's not necessary, it's not needed, and it's not helpful. And growing up, to be honest, I would have been one of those shitheads as a kid. Yeah. I would have made that comment. I would have made that joke. I would have been that person because it was what was normal. And just because it was normal doesn't mean it's okay. A lot of times, if something's normal, it's probably not okay.
If it's been normalized in the group, maybe not. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a reason. Yeah.
And being part of Be Proud, the group at work, really showed me, I got to hear other people's experiences. I got to hear, a lot of people had much harder coming out stories than I had. A lot of people had much later on in life come out. Just many different experiences there. Yeah. But the common theme was everyone tried to hide it, because it was something that everyone had that kind of similar experience of being told in one way or another it's not okay. But the name of the group was Be Proud, and that was the whole point, was to be proud of who you were. And that's probably been one of the most pivotal, not necessarily exactly a moment, but interactions of my life, is going from the person who would make those comments to realizing the comments bothered me, to finding a place where I could be safe, and not only me be safe, but show others that they were safe, comfortable, welcome, loved, however you want to word it. That really is what opened my eyes to show me that the world needed to be a more inclusive and accepting place, not just with LGBTQ, but every group, like women, minorities of any kind.
I love that. And thank you for sharing, and also sharing the part where you admit, I used to be the person that could have made those bad decisions, and I could have been that person that would have repeated those things. But I realized, actually, I don't know if I like that version of me, or if I need to keep that. And I know you're not part of the group now, or at least not as active with Be Proud, but whenever I've had something on deep in my heart that I'm trying to hide, a lot of that also comes with shame, and being told you shouldn't feel that way, or you shouldn't do those things, or you shouldn't think these things, or whichever, or you shouldn't want these things for your life for whatever reason. Anybody could feel this way. It doesn't have to just be your sexual orientation. But I'm curious, how did joining that group help you deal with feelings of either shame or guilt or confusion about being told you should not be who you are?
I'm so happy you asked that question, because one of the things that I've struggled a lot with in life, to be completely honest, is, for lack of better terms, feeling like I wasn't good enough, not just because I'm gay, but because of different things about me. Like, for one, I have an accent. I have had relationships in the past where comments were made about me being in the car business and it being a little kind of blue collar. And I am a little blue collar.
There's nothing wrong with blue collar.
Yes. And the people in that group, they all already knew that was an experience we were all having, not just with the, LGBTQ issues, but across the board. Yeah. Everyone has something where they feel like they're not good enough. Or I feel like most people do. I could be wrong. But there was one girl in the group that I can't remember exactly what sparked the conversation one day, but she stopped me and she told me, she was like, George, you've got to be comfortable with who you are, not with who people want you to be, but with who you are and doing what you want to do. And when she said it, at first I was mortified, because I thought, oh shit, she can tell. I thought I hit it better than that.
No.
And I was just like, oh yeah, thank you, haha. But I thought on it for days. And finally one day I texted her and I was like, hey, I want you to know that was really impactful for me, because I'm not quite sure who I am yet. I think that's a hard question to answer, because you grow and evolve every day. But I do know that I'm sometimes scared of trying to be who I know I am, at least at this point, because I feel like it's not good enough, whether it's for, being gay
Yeah.
or whatever else.
Well, you also got taught you should hate yourself. Like, how do you learn self-love or self-appreciation if who you are is considered the abomination, Like, I'm a walking contradiction at this point in my current environment. So how, if I'm not supposed to exist, how am I supposed to improve or be better or different? Because I can't change this. I am George.
Yes. And that's honestly something that's been really helpful for me in the past year, which I know everybody wouldn't have the same experience. But I was speaking to a relative of mine, and I made a comment about some of the comments they made when I was growing up, because we were talking through me going to therapy and things like that.
Yeah.
And they said, I just didn't realize your childhood was that hard. And I said, well, I don't mean to put you down, but I don't know if you remember some of the things you said, because you don't say them now that you know that I'm gay. And they were like, well, what do you mean? And I gave a few examples, and I could tell from the look in their face, I could tell for when they were remorseful for doing it, which made me feel better, because I think that's one of the biggest parts for me of being able to forgive someone is everyone messes up. You just have to get over that. But the fact that when I called her out on it, it was my grandmother.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So the fact that when I said something to my grandmother about, like, I know you don't, like, you remember saying these things. You might not exactly remember the exact moment, but I always will. Mm. And I could tell that when I said it, she hadn't realized, and she did feel bad. And my goal wasn't to make her feel bad, but it was really comforting to see that she did. It showed me that she's not just a terrible person, which I never thought she was, but it showed me that, sometimes people grow. They become, how do I word this? They start to realize that maybe the actions that they didn't think anything of years ago weren't appropriate or necessary.
Right.
So yeah, a big part of me being able to grow for myself has been being able to have conversations with people who might have said things, or apologizing for things I have said, just being more aware.
I think a lot of people, when you're raised in an environment that teaches you these mantras over and over and over again, whether they're directly said or they're subliminal within the culture in and of itself, you ingrain them into you, despite sometimes to a point where you don't even realize that they're in there. Those biases get built up, and so people sometimes may not realize how much weight their words can carry. So even if you said it in passing, you didn't say it directly at someone, it was just a comment about whatever was going on in that exact moment, to not realize that it could impact a young child, it probably just never crossed her mind. So I don't know that she would ever probably maliciously on purpose want to do something against you. I know some people in your family have done those things, but her in particular, I know that if she had known at the time, I'm sure that she would have maybe thought about a different way of saying something to you.
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. And that for me, that's a big defining characteristic of whether or not someone's a good person is their intentions. Sure. And she'd never said anything with, ill intentions of trying to hurt me or anything like that.
Yeah.
And as soon as she realized that it did, she felt bad about it.
Right. Yeah.
And that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. I've had moments in my life with other family members, even some related to this show too, that it's been really tough to go back and go, well, when we had XYZ conversation, you said this to me and it really impacted how I felt. And like, it made me feel worse about me either not getting this job or not getting going in the direction you told me I was supposed to go in, but I'm really good at what I'm doing. And like, you should let me just do it. Like, why are you trying to say these things to make me feel worse? And then they'd come back and go, well, that's not how the conversation went. I never said that, or I didn't do that. I remember the moment. I remember where I was standing. I remember where you were standing. I remember the phone call. I have the email where you repeated it again. I'm not saying it to tell you that I'm mad at you still or anything like that, but what you said impacted me moving forward. It either changed how I felt about my confidence, or it made me feel guilty about something I should have never felt guilt about to begin with. Mm-hmm. Those conversations are so hard to have, because if you don't approach it in the right kind of way, they might feel attacked, and I don't want to start a fight. It's just, so I'm proud of you for, one, even being able to have the conversation at all is impressive and shows how much growth you've had. But then the fact that she received it well enough and reciprocated wanting to grow with you is so important, because that's not how those conversations can go every time.
Definitely. And honestly, that's a very good point, that kind of reminded me of a good point.
Yeah.
One of the most important things I've learned as I've grown up, being able to communicate is the most valuable skill you could ever have, in my opinion, no matter what field you're in, no matter where you live, no matter who you are, because a lot of times people, me specifically, will let things bottle up and bother them. And then you'll wind up either snapping at a point and just getting pissed and like letting it out on somebody.
Right.
Or quitting. I know that one of my issues in life has been I will get pent up and quit because I wouldn't communicate what was bothering me. I felt scared too. But from my experience, since I've kind of started actually doing it, trying to communicate better, I've learned it usually goes well. Now, there's some people that don't want to talk to you, talk through something they don't care. But most of the time, if it's someone that you care about so much, they probably care about you just as much.
Yep.
And even though the conversation might be hard, the communication is without a doubt worth it.
Yeah, I actually did that earlier this week. I had a meeting on the books with our CEO that I had been wanting to have for a while, and it kept getting pushed back and pushed back. So my anxiety kept building and building every time the meeting had to get pushed. And it's kind of like, if I wait too much longer, I don't know if she's going to receive it well, or if it'll, I don't know if it'll affect my job if I bring her this information or not. And so I definitely started to overthink it. And then luckily, as soon as we had the conversation, she was receptive and kind and was like, oh yeah, absolutely. If that's how you need to realign this, then do it. You need to be supported in whatever way makes you the most comfortable and happy and, efficient. And like, if you need to make the XYZ change, do that, whatever. But like,
that's amazing.
I was so nervous about it. And you're like, I overthought. I went to the longer it was put off, the more like other kind of scenario I would play out in my head. And stop doing that. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. You go in there as, intentional as possible. Don't come flying in with like guns a-blazing or something, and she won't come back guns a-blazing either, right? So it's kind of like, exactly. I should have just listened to myself from the beginning, but it's hard. It's really hard. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to do that, and you've talked a lot in this conversation about confidence and building your own self-respect and how you've improved on that over the years. So I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit, or be willing to share, what's a self-limiting belief that you've probably had about yourself, and how did that belief impact your progression or your relationships in some way?
From just a high level overall, not feeling good enough, or not feeling like I'm good enough. And honestly, like, I feel for a lot of people, most people, if you actually put effort into something, you're going to be good enough at it within reason. Obviously, I'm not going to win the Masters this year, but I'm not a terrible golfer.
Right. Yeah.
So for the most part, whenever you really put your all into something, you're going to be fairly good at it. Or you're going to succeed in one way or another, even if the success that you get out of it is a lesson that contributes to later on success. So instead of, for me, either putting up a wall and quitting, or one of my favorites is to do laps around my kitchen island.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you do that when you get nervous.
Yes, I will get nervous, and I'll either do laps around the neighborhood, my kitchen island, or I spiral.
You're obsessed with circles.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Look at us tapping into your subconscious.
Well, the helpful part is when I realize what I'm doing, just stop and try it. Don't convince yourself or myself that I'm not good enough for it, or that I'm not good enough at it, or that I'm not going to succeed, or whatever. For one, the definition of success is extremely variable for me. Sometimes success doesn't look the way people anticipate, and that's a good thing. Like,
right.
I think one of the best successes I've ever had was I lost a good bit of money on a Porsche one time, and I learned not to buy cars without looking at them.
Gotta see it in person.
Yeah, don't get excited and go for it. And, think through what you're doing. But in any case, sorry, back to your question.
No, that's okay.
Instead of limiting myself and spiraling, just do it. And if you're scared to go all in on something, or if you're scared to do something by yourself, find a way to ease into it. If there's, I don't know, a party that you're wanting to go to and you're scared to go by yourself, find a friend to go with you. Instead of sitting at home, because if you sit at home, you'll wind up just wishing you had gone. 9 times out of 10, kind of like going to the gym. I've never been to the gym that I got home and thought, oh, I wish I hadn't gone today. I always get home and I've got a clearer mind. I'm happy I went. I feel healthier, happier, whatever. It doesn't have to be the gym. It could be anything. Just try it. And at least for me, I've learned, even if I fail, I'm happy I tried. So yeah, don't hold yourself back.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for a lot of people, that's a big issue, is there's not that many, roadblocks or barriers out there. It's barriers you're creating for yourself.
I love that. And in the very beginning, you mentioned even failing even if you run the risk and you try something new and you fail at it, you've actually been successful because failure taught you something. You got a lesson out of whatever that experience is. So you got to walk away with something. And growth in a different direction. You get new data, you can start over, you can pivot, you can whatever, you can try again based on that lesson. So even getting a failure for you sounds like a success because you were able to gain something from the experience at all because you tried. So I liked that you twisted that. I don't think I've talked to anybody yet that twisted it exactly in that way. When you're just having a minor mindset shift, your perspective shift, like that's a cool way to look at it.
And honestly, in the moment, I don't always realize.
Oh no, it doesn't feel that way. Yeah.
No, it
doesn't feel successful.
Yes. It might be a week, month, year, or however long later. But eventually you'll be able to reframe it and realize, oh, well, I learned this from that. And it's more worth it.
Yeah. It actually helped you more than it hindered you. Yes. I love that. Well, we do have all of our typical core questions that we ask all the guests, so we can play rapid fire if you'd like. What do you want out of life, and have you found what you're looking for?
Okay, so for what I want out of life, I have not quite figured that out yet. Yeah. I am working on figuring it out. I decided middle of last year that I didn't know what was about to happen, but I knew something big was about to happen. Still haven't quite figured out what it is yet, but I feel like it's happening.
Okay.
I can't really explain why, but I feel like it is. And so a big part of that is trying to decide back to the car business, how much of that I want, whether I want it to be full-time, part-time, all of that. And like I said, for now, I think the best option for me is a 9-to-5 that I don't hate, and then the outlet with cars, because that's what I like to do on the weekends. It's what I like to do after work. It's what I like to do for fun. Right. So that's what I think I want right now, at least as far as kind of the life from that perspective. The one I'm kind of struggling with is figuring out what I want in like my relationships. Yeah. Which I'll figure it out eventually. I don't know.
I don't have it figured out either. Nashville's a tough town, man. So I wish you the best of luck.
And it's so hard because like my parents are divorced. And I mean, hell, they've been divorced. They got divorced when I was 8 months old. I tell people I'm the kid you have to save your marriage, and it did not work. But,
you're like, do not do this. Do not make this mistake. I'm an example of a successful failure.
Well, and they still hate each other. It's been nearly 30 years and they still hate each other.
Sure. No.
So when I look for a relationship, I want someone that obviously you love and everything, but even when I don't like them, I still don't hate them.
You still pick them. You're still committed to building a life with them.
Yes.
I think that's a much more realistic way to look at it, because life's hard and it's going to throw you guys curveballs. And if you don't pick the right person who can ride that wave with you, it'll be total chaos.
Exactly. Because I mean, even Adele ticks me off sometimes. Sometimes she's like a fish when I walk away. And
oh yeah. No, I did that to Dirks this morning even. I like threw him outside, be like, you need to go to the bathroom. Like just be outside, go pee. And he's like, no, like scratching at the door. Okay. So we're going to have to wrap it up real quick.
Great.
But you're usually the final question for anybody who might be listening, who's feeling low or lost or stuck, or maybe they're in a similar situation to you. They just recently lost their job. They're having a tough time right now. This is a really unsettling year that a lot of people are dealing with for lots of different reasons. What are some tips or advice? What would you say to somebody that might be feeling like that and in a stuck low moment, and they know they need to make a change, but don't know how to do it?
Definitely. Okay. So for the quick part of that, or like the quick fix for a person in that position, for me, I have to have my routine, because if I have my routine, then that helps me get back to a place where I feel good. Okay. I might still feel stuck, but at least I feel like I'm I'm in a good place. So like for me, that's getting up, getting a shower, taking Adele for a walk,
Yeah.
just kind of prepping for my day. And then at night, getting a shower before bed, that kind of thing. Because that just kind of brings me to a calm state. For the feeling stuck part,
Yeah.
I am working on this myself, and I really hope I don't give this advice. Someone takes it and it does not go well, but I promise it might.
We're about to find out. Yeah.
Just wing it and go for it. I think that's really the best advice I can give, because at least for me,
Yeah.
when I feel stuck, I'm just stuck and I'm like, oh, should I do it? Should I not? Blah, blah, blah. Most decisions can be reversed. Not all, but most.
Yeah.
So go for it. If you want to try it, try it. If you want to do it, do it. If it doesn't work out, don't do it again. Just try it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're always going to wish you did. And you might not have the opportunity to do it again later.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned through the last couple of years is that if an opportunity were to approach you now, are you more willing or less willing to like take that risk on yourself? And I think more and more every day, my answer is now yes. Like I'm going to be living in a phase of my life now where I have to say yes to a lot of things, because if I'm trying to figure out how to get unstuck, I got to try anything and everything. I can't let myself sit there and lose who I am, right? Through indecision. Yeah.
Yes, because indecision doesn't help.
Yeah. Okay. Well, George, thank you so much. I'm so honored and had so much fun with you. Please come back whenever you want.
Oh, I'd love to.
But let everybody know how if they like that accent, if they think you're kind of cute, how do they find you? If they want to buy a car from you, what do they do? How can they contact you? What are you comfortable sharing or plugging?
Okay, so my Instagram is George, spelled Jorge _ Clements, Clements.
Okay.
And that's honestly probably the best way to reach me.
Yeah, Instagram. Okay.
Yeah, I love funny reels. So if you want to send me some of those, I would not be upset.
So good. Your meme game better be on point if you're going to talk to George.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to the show. We've had such a great time this week. I will make sure that I put all of our information into the description box and in the show notes so you can find me, find George, reach out to either one of us. Let us know what you loved about the show. I'd love to hear from you. Of course, as always, you can reach out to me at hello@podcastforthelost.com. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.